Now everyone's wondering if there's going to be a bull fight happen. But no, it's a middle-aged man in a towel cape. Things just got real, people. So like a lot of you, I wanted to change the world as a kid. I wanted to be a superhero. I wanted to be Superman more than anything. So I put my underwear on outside my clothes. I put a towel cape around my neck because, as any kid will tell you, a towel cape is the source of superhero power. I just wanted it so bad, and that was why Christmas was such an exciting time. So great! And it was so tragic what happened next. I was the fricking Flash. The Flash, it must be noted, does not wear a cape. I was unhappy. And so began my inevitable descent into supervillainy. Now, I failed to become a superhero for a lot of the same reasons all of you probably feel like you failed to become superheroes. Here are some of the top reasons. Number one, I found out I couldn't fly one day. Number two, I no longer look good in tights. Most important, I grew up. Have ever there been sadder words spoken in the English language? I just grew up. But I didn't want to just fail to be a superhero, so I decided I would be a supervillain. And in today's society, how do you do that? The answer was obvious. I became a lawyer. Sorry, a lawyer. So disrespectful. A lawyer. That's the one I meant. The only problem was I quickly discovered that not only are not all lawyers evil, a disturbingly high number of them are actually kind of good people. Worse than that, though, they tended to frown on my showing up to trial rocking the bald head and awesome facial hair combo that was part of my supervillain trademark. So I moved on. I had to find something else. What could I do? Well, I put my skills that I had learned as a lawyer to good use. I lied to people for a living. I became a writer. The difference was now when I lied to people, they loved me for it. Still wasn't enough. So I really became a supervillain. I became a horror writer. I terrify people for a living. And I was good at it. I wrote dozens of books. I wrote bestsellers. I started traveling to Comic Cons and writing conferences, telling them how I was going to scare them. I started going to businesses and schools and telling them my intent to terrorize and destroy their lives. And they loved it. They thought it was fantastic. I even had fans making cool t-shirts about me. For those of you who can't read, it says, "Always be yourself. Unless you can be Michaelbrent Collings, then always be Michaelbrent." I even managed something that almost no supervillain has ever managed. I had a family that I loved, and they loved me. I was on top of the world. The only problem, of course, was that I had fundamentally misunderstood what makes a supervillain. See, supervillains aren't really about conquering the world. They're about destroying a superhero. And unbeknownst to me, I had a real supervillain growing inside me. I didn't know what its name was. I fought it unnamed for about 10 years until I finally got some help, and someone gave the supervillain a name. I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, suicidal tendencies, and psychotic breaks. Now, this last one always gets a reaction for some reason that I don't pretend to understand. It's not like in the movies. The people in the front row, you do not have to worry that I'm going to jump out and make a wallet out of your face skin. Bet you thought you were pretty cool sitting in the front row, didn't you? No, what psychotic breaks mean is you don't understand reality. With relation to major depressive disorder, it meant I was operating at times through a lens where only one world made sense, and that was a world that was better off without me. Inexorably, inevitably. And on those days, my wife has to take away the car keys and move my medication and watch me. Still, I kept going. I kept visiting people. I kept talking to people. Only now I knew the truth. Now I knew they were they were laughing at me. And I knew that the ones that weren't laughing at me, they were going to be so mad when they found out what a fraud I really was. Now, 2 events changed this somewhat. The first happened at a Comic-Con. For those of you who have never been to a Comic-Con, they are awesome. A Comic-Con is the only place in the world where you can see 12 Deadpools walk by, talking so animatedly, they somehow fail to notice the middle-aged woman dressed as a full-size T-Rex. All of them collide, fall to the ground, and are rescued by a troop of dudes dressed as My Little Pony. Fantastic. And families get in on this as well, so you'll have theme families. And I'm talking to one of these well, let's be honest, I'm talking to the parents because no kid wants to stand at a boring thing full of boring books talking to some boring dude while he signs boring things. But I'm talking to this family, and they're fantastic, and I'm signing books. And all of a sudden I hear a little boy's voice scream, "That's the best book in the whole wide world!" And I look down, and there's 8-year-old Superman pointing at one of my books. And in the next moment, he pushes all the books away, takes off his cape, the source of his power, lays it across the table, grabs a Sharpie and says, "Sign this." Now, I'm a responsible adult, so I said, "No, that's the source of your power. You don't want me to ruin it." And this little boy looks at me, tears in his eyes, in the eyes of Superman, the person I had wanted to be. And he says, "Don't you understand that signing my cape will make it better and make it more powerful?" A short time after this, I got an email from a fan. And she said she didn't expect a response, took the pressure off, didn't want a response, hey, great, and wouldn't get a response because she was dying. She was going into the hospital for the last time and wanted me to know that she was taking my scariest books with her to the hospital because they gave her hope. Now, I know some of you out there are thinking, well, how does that work? And I'll talk about that in a second. But first of all, I had been taught 2 truths. The first one was that no matter how far I thought I had fallen, I was still a superhero to somebody. And the second person, this dying woman, had taught me what my superpower was. I found hope in horror. I began paying more attention to the people that I met and that I talked to. And I found something very interesting as I looked for truths like the ones that have been given to me. I found out that as humans, we tend to gravitate towards truth, but we do it while fixating on lies. If you doubt this, try Googling how to tell the truth, important things about the truth, and you will get nothing but responses about lies. How to spot a liar, lies we tell, 10 lies we tell ourselves. Number 5 will amaze you. It's weird because lies, by definition, do not reflect reality. They are a psychosis that we have agreed to share and treat as fact. And I can tell you from experience, psychoses don't work over time. That's why liars tend to self-select out of our lives. They tend to either self-destruct or we recognize the information they're giving us is not real and we start ignoring it. We tend towards truth. I mean, look at science. We're constantly looking bigger and bigger and smaller and smaller. Why? To figure out what the universe really is, to figure out the truth. And in math, we're constantly refining our ability to quantify and describe that truth so that we can understand it. Even as just a culture, we know it is generally better to be kind than to be cruel. We're a lot more concerned today than we were 100 years ago about children's education or vaccines or providing potable drinking water. We progress because that's the only reality that makes sense. We find things that are useful and we push towards them. And so I was amazed to discover, as I look for these kinds of things in others, how many of them shared the same psychosis. And it was the same psychosis I had shared, and it's the one most of you shared, especially those of you who nodded when I put up a list of why we failed to become superheroes. The psychosis that I found everywhere was people saying, I'm not a superhero. And it's just not true. So I'd like to do a really quick experiment. Can we have the lights on? The house lights? Okay, so this is embarrassing. Awesome, I'm embarrassed. You get to be embarrassed. So this requires some truth-telling, and I really need your help. So please answer honestly, raise your hand if it applies, and keep it up. Who out here has ever saved a life? Giving blood or taking somebody to the hospital counts. More hands. Who here has ever given a life? Moms? Keep your hands up. Who here has ever held someone's hand in despair? Who here has ever gotten out of bed on a day they did not want to because someone else relied on them? Who here has gotten out of bed when you didn't want to because you were relying on you? Look around really quick. The world is full of superheroes. And some of you still say, well, I don't have a cool cape, and I don't have laser vision, but that's another fundamental misunderstanding, because superheroes are not defined by those things. They are defined by hope. Superman gets out of bed not so he can deflect bullets or so he can have changed the world. He gets out of bed hoping that by doing so, he will make a change. And that's what we all do. That's a uniquely human thing. And if you doubt that you're a part of that, guess what? You're here. You're watching on the internet because you hope it will make a difference. Everything we do is motivated by hope. And that's a fantastic thing. Now, knowing this fantastic, amazing thing, and how cool and amazing people are, do I still scare them? Abso-frickin-lutely. I love to. It's my job. I teach people that the world is full of monsters, but it is more full of heroes. I teach them that the world is full of horror, but horror never can and never will extinguish hope, because horror cannot exist without hope. Horror is simply a recognition of all the miraculous things we enjoy now and the fear that we won't have them tomorrow. So yeah, I scare people. I'm the hopeful horror writer. I'm a superhero. And so are you.